21. Black celebrities who lost their children in the most tragic ways. Imagine reaching the highest levels of fame, fortune, and success only to face a tragedy that no amount of money could ever undo. Behind the smiles, championship trophies, hit records, and Hollywood spotlights, some of America's most celebrated black stars endured the unimaginable pain of losing a child. Regina King lost her only son. Mike Tyson faced a heartbreaking accident involving his 4-year-old daughter. Bobby Brown buried 2 of his children, while Eddie Levert suffered the devastating loss of 2 sons. These are stories of grief, survival, and love that never disappeared. Stay with us until the end, subscribe to Golden Black Legends, and tell us in the comments which story touched your heart the most. Regina King. Regina King has spent decades portraying women who endure extraordinary hardship, but no role could have prepared her for the tragedy that entered her own life in January 2022. The Academy Award-winning actress had one child, Ian Alexander Jr., born in 1996 during her marriage to record producer Ian Alexander Sr. Their relationship was exceptionally close, extending beyond the traditional bond between mother and son. They even shared matching tattoos representing unconditional love, a small but powerful symbol of how deeply connected they were. Ian pursued music under the name Des Dunay and was beginning to establish his own creative identity. Tragically, on January 21, 2022, shortly after his 26th birthday, Ian died by suicide. King and her family confirmed his death in a statement, remembering him as a bright light who cared deeply about other people. The loss was especially devastating because Ian was King's only child. For a long period afterward, King largely protected her grief from public view. She eventually spoke extensively about Ian during a 2024 interview, explaining that grief had fundamentally changed her. Rather than describing mourning as something she could simply finish and leave behind, King spoke about learning to exist with the loss. She also acknowledged complicated emotions, including anger and guilt, without pretending there was an easy path toward healing. Eventually, King returned to acting and directing, but continuing her career did not mean leaving Ian behind. She has spoken about maintaining a spiritual connection with her son and honoring his presence in her life. Regina King's story reveals something awards and celebrity can never conceal. Behind the celebrated performer is a mother living with an unimaginable absence. Her strength is not measured by forgetting what happened, but by continuing forward while carrying Ian's memory with her every day. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson spent years terrifying heavyweight opponents with explosive speed and devastating punching power. By his early 20s, he had already become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. Yet all the strength that made Tyson feared inside the ring became meaningless when tragedy struck his family in May 2009. His 4-year-old daughter, Exodus Tyson, suffered a catastrophic accident at a home in Phoenix, Arizona. According to police accounts, Exodus became entangled in a cord associated with a treadmill. Her 7-year-old brother discovered her and alerted their mother. Emergency assistance was called, CPR was attempted, and Exodus was rushed to a hospital in critical condition. Despite efforts to save her, she died on May 26, 2009, one day after the accident. Authorities described what happened as a tragic accident. Tyson was reportedly in Las Vegas when he learned about his daughter's condition and traveled to Phoenix. In later interviews, he revealed just how difficult the aftermath had been, rather than constructing dramatic explanations around the tragedy. Tyson acknowledged the overwhelming emotions that accompanied losing a child and his reluctance to search for someone to blame. For a man whose public reputation had been built around confrontation, the loss exposed an entirely different kind of vulnerability. There was no opponent Tyson could knock down, no championship he could win, and no amount of money capable of reversing what had happened. Tyson eventually continued with his life, raising his family and reinventing himself publicly through entertainment business and personal reflection. But Exodus remained part of his story. The tragedy created a painful contrast with the image millions remembered. Mike Tyson survived brutal battles, controversy, defeat, and remarkable comebacks. Yet the most devastating moment of his life happened far away from a boxing ring, reminding everyone that even the strongest champion can be powerless when confronted with the loss of a child. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown's life has been filled with extraordinary success and deeply painful loss. As a member of New Edition and later a solo star, behind hits such as My Prerogative and Every Little Step, Brown became one of R&B's most recognizable performers. Yet behind the music he experienced a tragedy few parents could imagine, not once but twice. Two of his children, Bobby Christina Brown and Bobby Brown Jr., died only 5 years apart. Bobby Christina Brown's daughter, with Whitney Houston, was found unresponsive in a bathtub at her Georgia home on January 31, 2015. She remained hospitalized and later received hospice care but never recovered. On July 26, 2015, she died at only 22 years old. The medical examiner determined that her death resulted from lobar pneumonia caused by brain damage associated with immersion and drug intoxication. Then another devastating call came in November 2020. Brown's son, Bobby Brown Jr., was found dead at his Los Angeles home at age 28. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner determined his death was accidental and attributed it to the combined effects of alcohol, cocaine, and fentanyl. For Brown, losing another child so soon after Bobby Christina created another unimaginable layer of grief. Brown has spoken publicly about both losses rather than pretending time simply erased them. He later established the Bobby Christina Serenity House, an initiative associated with raising awareness about domestic violence and providing resources for survivors. His story carries a painful contradiction. Audiences remember the energetic performer dancing across stages, but behind that image is a father who has buried 2 children. Bobby Brown continued performing and living after those tragedies. But continuing is not the same as forgetting. His story reminds us that fame can bring applause from millions, yet no amount of recognition can protect a parent from the devastating silence left when a child is gone. Tina Turner. Tina Turner survived hardships that would have broken many people. She escaped an abusive marriage, rebuilt her career when much of the music industry had written her off, and eventually became one of the world's most celebrated performers. But in 2018, long after achieving peace and international success, Turner faced a tragedy. No professional comeback could repair the death of her eldest son, Craig Raymond Turner. Craig was born in 1958 when Tina was only 18. His biological father was saxophonist Raymond Hill, although Ike Turner later adopted him. Unlike his internationally famous mother, Craig generally lived outside the entertainment spotlight and worked in real estate in California. Tina described him as an emotional and sensitive person, making what happened particularly difficult for her to understand. On July 3, 2000, Craig died by suicide at his home in Studio City, California. He was 59 years old. Tina later spoke about the loss, publicly acknowledging the questions that remained in her mind. She remembered that Craig had seemed happier in the period before his death and had entered a new relationship, making his decision even harder for her to comprehend. Later that month, Turner gathered with family and friends aboard a boat off the California coast and scattered Craig's ashes into the Pacific Ocean. She shared a photograph from the farewell and described it as her saddest moment as a mother. Tragically, Craig was not Tina's only son to die during her lifetime. Her son Ronnie Turner died in December 2022 at age 62. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner reported complications of metastatic colon cancer with cardiovascular disease contributing. Tina Turner died only months later, in May 2023 at 83. The world remembers her as a survivor who repeatedly rebuilt her life. Yet behind that legendary strength was also a grieving mother who experienced the devastating loss of 2 sons before her own final chapter. Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon is known for maintaining one of the busiest careers in American entertainment, moving between television, radio, comedy, music, and business. He is also the father of a large family, but behind the energetic public personality lies one experience Cannon has described with extraordinary emotion: losing his infant son, Zen, to brain cancer. Zen, Cannon's son, with model Alyssa Scott, was born in June 2021. At first, his parents noticed what appeared to be unusual breathing and a persistent cough. Doctors eventually discovered fluid accumulating in his head and a malignant brain tumor. Zen underwent surgery, but the cancer continued progressing. Cannon later explained publicly that the family tried to make the limited time they had together as meaningful as possible. By late 2021, Zen's condition had deteriorated significantly. Cannon and Scott took their son to the beach during his final days, creating one of the memories Cannon later described when announcing the tragedy. On December 5, 2021, Zen died at only 5 months old. Cannon revealed his son's death 2 days later on The Nick Cannon Show. Speaking through visible grief, he dedicated the broadcast to Zen and thanked the medical professionals who had cared for him. He also spoke repeatedly about Alyssa Scott's strength during their child's illness. The loss remained part of Cannon's life, even as he returned to work and continued raising his other children. He later helped establish a pediatric cancer foundation in Zen's memory, turning private grief towards supporting other families facing childhood cancer. For viewers who know Cannon primarily through his humor and relentless energy, Zen's story reveals something very different. No television success could change the outcome, and no celebrity privilege could guarantee a cure. Zen lived for only 5 months, but for his parents, those months created a lifetime of memories. Cannon's story reminds us that sometimes the smallest life can leave an enormous absence. Dr. Dre helped transform the sound of American hip-hop, from NWA to the Chronic Death Row Records, Aftermath Entertainment, and his work with artists such as Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and 50 Cent. His influence reaches across generations. But away from the studio's awards and business success, Dre experienced one of the darkest moments imaginable for a father when his son, Andre Young Jr., died unexpectedly in 2008. Andre was Dre's son with Janita Porter. Unlike his famous father, he largely remained outside the public spotlight. On August 23, 2008, the 20-year-old spent an evening with friends before returning to his mother's home in Woodland Hills, California. The following morning, his mother found him unresponsive and called emergency services. He could not be revived. Andre was only 20 years old. Months later, the Los Angeles County coroner determined that his death was an accident caused by an overdose of heroin and morphine. Dr. Dre's representative released a brief statement asking the public to respect the family's grief and privacy. Dre did not turn his son's death into a public spectacle, and responsible retellings should similarly avoid inventing private conversations or emotional scenes that were never documented. The tragedy came at a time when Dre remained one of music's most influential producers. His professional life continued, eventually expanding into enormously successful business ventures and further work with major artists. Yet commercial achievements cannot be measured against the death of a child. Dre has generally kept his feelings about Andre's death private, which makes restraint especially important when telling this story. What is known is heartbreaking enough. Behind the image of the meticulous producer who helped build musical empires is a father who lost his son at just 20 years old. Andre Young Jr.'s death became a private tragedy within one of hip-hop's most public careers. A reminder that even extraordinary success cannot shield a family from irreversible loss. Prince Rogers. Nelson spent his life protecting his privacy, so when tragedy entered his family in 1996, very little was initially understood by the public. That year, Prince and his then-wife, Maid Garcia, welcomed their first child, a son. The pregnancy had been eagerly anticipated, but immediately after birth, doctors discovered that the baby had severe medical complications associated with Pfeiffer syndrome type 2, a rare genetic disorder affecting the development of the skull and other parts of the body. Their son, commonly identified as Amir Gregory Nelson, was born on October 16, 1996. According to Garcia's later account, the abnormalities were devastating, and despite medical care, the infant survived for only about 6 days. The loss occurred during a period when Prince remained intensely private, and the couple did not publicly discuss the tragedy in detail at the time. Years later, Garcia described the experience in her memoir, revealing how profoundly losing their child affected her. The couple subsequently experienced another pregnancy loss. Their marriage eventually ended in 2000, although it would be irresponsible to claim that grief alone caused their separation. Prince largely avoided discussing his son publicly. That silence should not be filled with invented conversations or dramatic scenes. The documented facts already reveal enough behind one of music's most mysterious and successful performers was a father who had experienced the death of his newborn child. Prince continued creating at an astonishing pace until his own death in 2016 at age 57. His catalog remains filled with celebration, spirituality, desire, and vulnerability, but this intensely personal chapter stayed mostly outside the spotlight. For millions, Prince was an almost untouchable musical genius. Yet the loss of Amir revealed a painful truth hidden behind the fame. Even an artist capable of controlling nearly every detail of his creative world could do nothing to prevent the most heartbreaking loss a parent can face. George Foreman. George Foreman experienced one of the most remarkable transformations in sports history. He went from intimidating heavyweight champion to beloved television personality, minister, businessman, and father of a large family. Yet in March 2019, the man famous for surviving brutal fights and rebuilding his life faced a loss. No championship mentality could prepare him for the death of his daughter, Frida Foreman. Frida was one of Foreman's children and briefly followed her father into professional boxing. She competed professionally in the early 2000s, winning several bouts before leaving the sport. Her father had concerns about her boxing career, and Frida ultimately pursued other interests, including education and family life. On March 9, 2019, Frida was found dead at her home near Houston, Texas. She was 42 years old. The Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences later determined that her death was suicide. Because the circumstances involve a deeply personal family tragedy, there is no reason to speculate beyond the official findings. Foreman responded publicly with a message remembering his daughter and reflecting on their relationship. His words revealed a side far removed from the heavyweight who once knocked opponents down with frightening power. This was simply a father mourning his child. The loss became another difficult chapter in Foreman's extraordinary life. He continued to speak warmly about his family and remained a widely admired figure until his own death on March 21, 2025, at age 76. Foreman had already learned that physical strength could disappear, championships could be lost, and careers could be rebuilt. Losing Frida was different. There was no rematch and no second chance to change what happened. For older boxing fans who remember the fearsome young Foreman and his remarkable comeback decades later, this tragedy revealed perhaps his most vulnerable role, not champion, preacher, or entrepreneur, but a father grieving a daughter he could never replace. Oprah Winfrey. Long before Oprah Winfrey became one of the most influential media figures in the world, she endured a childhood marked by poverty, instability, and sexual abuse. One of the least discussed chapters of that early life involved motherhood. Oprah became pregnant when she was only 14 years old, years before television audiences would know her name. Winfrey has spoken publicly about the pregnancy and the complicated emotions surrounding it. She gave birth prematurely to a baby boy who did not survive infancy. Accounts of exactly how long he lived have varied in secondary retellings, so an accurate script should avoid inventing precise final moments or dramatic scenes that Oprah herself has not confirmed. The pregnancy occurred after years in which Winfrey has said she experienced sexual abuse beginning in childhood. She later explained that at the time she felt enormous fear and shame surrounding the pregnancy. Her son's death became part of an extraordinarily difficult adolescence that could easily have sent her life in an entirely different direction. Years later, a relative revealed the existence of the child to the media without Winfrey's permission. Oprah eventually discussed the experience herself. She has said she named the baby Canaan, a name carrying spiritual meaning associated with a promised new life. Winfrey never had another biological child. Instead, she eventually built a global media career through The Oprah Winfrey Show, philanthropy, publishing, film, and education. She has often spoken about mentoring young women and has described the students of the school she founded in South Africa in deeply maternal terms. Her story deserves careful treatment because it is not simply a celebrity tragedy. Oprah was herself still a child when she became a mother and experienced the death of her baby. Decades before wealth and worldwide recognition arrived, she had already survived experiences that remained largely invisible to audiences. Losing Canaan was one of them, a private wound carried into an extraordinary adult life. James Brown. James Brown was known as the godfather of soul, a performer whose relentless energy helped reshape popular music. Songs such as Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I Got You, I Feel Good and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud made him an enormous cultural figure. But in 1973, at the height of his fame, Brown experienced a devastating personal loss when his eldest son, Teddy Brown, died unexpectedly. Teddy was James Brown's son with his first wife, Velma Warren. He had followed his father toward music and was developing his own career performing with a group called Teddy Brown and the Torches. His future appeared promising, but it ended suddenly before he had the opportunity to establish himself independently. On June 14, 1973, Teddy Brown died following a car crash in New York. He was only 19 years old. Contemporary reporting surrounding the circumstances has produced conflicting details over the decades, so claims that alcohol, foul play, or another specific factor caused the crash should not be presented as established fact without strong documentation. For James Brown, the loss came during an already intense period professionally and personally. He continued recording and performing, but losing a child was something career momentum could not erase. Later retellings have sometimes dramatized his reaction with elaborate scenes and quotations that are difficult to verify. Those details are unnecessary. The confirmed reality of a father burying his teenage son is powerful enough. Brown lived for another 33 years, dying in 2006 at age 73. His musical influence became enormous, particularly through the rhythms and recordings that later formed foundations for funk and hip-hop. Yet behind that historic legacy was a family tragedy many casual listeners never knew. Teddy had begun walking toward music in his father's footsteps, but his life ended before audiences could discover where those footsteps might have taken him. James Brown could command almost any stage. In 1973, however, he confronted something no performance could fix: the permanent loss of his son. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke's voice helped transform American popular music, bridging gospel and soul with an effortless warmth heard in classics such as You Sent Me, Wonderful World, and A Change Is Gonna Come. Yet one of the darkest moments of Cooke's short life occurred away from recording studios and concert stages. In 1963, he and his wife Barbara lost their young son Vincent Cooke in a devastating accident. Vincent was approximately 18 months old when he drowned in the family swimming pool in Los Angeles. The tragedy struck Cooke when his career was flourishing. He was already one of America's most successful black performers, songwriter, businessmen, and recording artists, but none of those achievements could protect his family from a sudden accident at home. The loss understandably devastated the Cooke family. Some later accounts have attempted to connect every change in Sam's behavior afterward directly to Vincent's death. That should be handled cautiously. Grief certainly became part of his personal story, but private emotions and conversations should not be invented simply to make the tragedy more dramatic. What makes the story even more heartbreaking is how little time Cooke himself had left. On December 11, 1964, less than 2 years after losing Vincent, Sam Cooke was shot and killed at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. He was only 33 years old. His death meant that a family already grieving a young child now faced another devastating loss. Today, Cook is remembered as a foundational architect of soul music and an artist whose work influenced generations. A Change Is Gonna Come, released as a single shortly after his death, became particularly important to the civil rights era. Behind that monumental legacy, however, was a father who had experienced something profoundly human. Before Sam Cooke's own life ended tragically, he had already endured the unbearable pain of saying goodbye to his little boy. Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby's public legacy is deeply complicated by his criminal and civil legal history, but one tragedy in his family is separate and indisputable: the violent death of his only son, Ennis William Cosby, in 1997. Ennis was 27 and pursuing graduate studies in special education when an ordinary roadside problem turned fatal. During the early hours of January 16, 1997, Ennis was driving on Interstate 405 near Los Angeles when he stopped to change a flat tire. While he was beside his vehicle, he was confronted during what authorities described as an attempted robbery. Ennis was shot and killed. The sudden nature of the crime shocked the Cosby family and generated national attention. Ennis had dyslexia, and his experiences with the learning difference reportedly helped inspire his interest in education. At the time of his death, he was working toward a doctorate at Columbia University's Teachers College. His family remembered him not simply as the child of a celebrity, but as a young man hoping to help students facing challenges similar to those he had experienced. A suspect, Mikhail Markasev, was later convicted of Ennis Cosby's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The case therefore has a well-established legal record, and there is no need to embellish the circumstances with unsupported details. Ennis's death remained one of the most devastating events in his father's personal life. Bill and Camille Cosby later supported educational efforts connected with their son's memory. Any modern account of Bill Cosby must distinguish this genuine family tragedy from assessments of Cosby's own conduct and controversial legacy. Those are separate subjects. For this story, the focus is Ennis, a 27-year-old student whose future ended because he stopped to change a tire. Fame surrounded his family, but on that January morning, it could offer absolutely no protection. O.J. Simpson. Long before the legal controversies that would eventually define his public image, O.J. Simpson experienced a devastating family tragedy. In 1979, when Simpson was still widely known as a celebrated football star and emerging actor, his youngest daughter with his first wife, Marguerite Whitley, Aaron LaShawn Simpson, suffered a fatal accident. Aaron was born in September 1977. In August 1979, shortly before her second birthday, she was found unresponsive in the family swimming pool at their Los Angeles home. Emergency responders were able to restore some vital signs, and she was transported to the hospital. She remained in a coma, but despite medical efforts, she died several days later. Aaron was only 23 months old. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, because Simpson's later life became surrounded by enormous controversy. This earlier tragedy is sometimes overlooked or folded into sensationalized retellings. It should not be. Aaron's death occurred approximately 15 years before the 1994 killings of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, and belongs to an entirely separate chapter of the family's history. At the time, Simpson and Marguerite were already going through the end of their marriage. They had 2 other children together, Arnell and Jason. Losing Aaron added an unimaginable tragedy to an already difficult period. Simpson rarely made his daughter's death a major subject of his later public appearances, leaving many details of his grief private. Those gaps should remain private rather than being filled with invented dialogue or dramatic speculation. O.J. Simpson died in 2024 at age 76 after prostate cancer. His name remains inseparable from one of America's most controversial criminal cases. But decades before any of that, he experienced something far removed from courtrooms and headlines: the accidental death of a little girl who had not even reached her second birthday. Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen became an NBA legend as Michael Jordan's celebrated teammate on the Chicago Bulls, winning 6 championships and establishing himself as one of basketball's greatest defensive players. His athletic accomplishments eventually earned him induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame, but away from packed arenas and championship celebrations, Pippen endured devastating family losses. The most publicly discussed came in April 2021, when his eldest son, Antoine Pippen, died at only 33 years old. Antoine was born in 1987 during Scottie's marriage to Karen McCollum. Like his father, he loved basketball and competed at the college level, including at Texas A&M International University and South Georgia Technical College. Pippen later explained that Antoine suffered from chronic asthma, something he believed prevented his son from reaching his full potential as a basketball player. Scottie believed that, without the condition, Antoine might have reached the NBA. On April 18, 2021, Antoine died. Scottie publicly announced the loss the following day, saying he was heartbroken and asking fans to keep Antoine's mother and family in their thoughts. Importantly, Pippen did not publicly establish asthma as the cause of his son's death, so claiming that asthma killed Antoine would go beyond the confirmed information. The family kept those circumstances private. Antoine was not the only child Pippen lost. His daughter Tyler, a twin, died shortly after birth in 1994. That painful history gives another meaning to the word resilience when discussing Pippen's life. Basketball fans can count championships, all-star appearances and career statistics, but grief has no scoreboard. Behind the 6 championship rings is a father who has experienced the loss of 2 children, proof that even the greatest victories in sports cannot protect someone from life's most painful moments. Cissy Houston. Cissy Houston spent much of her life surrounded by extraordinary music. A Grammy-winning gospel singer and member of the Sweet Inspirations, she worked with artists including Elvis Presley and Aretha Franklin, while raising a daughter who would become one of the most famous singers in history, Whitney Houston. Yet on February 11, 2012, Cissy experienced the tragedy every parent fears when Whitney was found unresponsive in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She was pronounced dead at just 48 years old one day before the Grammy Awards. The Los Angeles County coroner determined that Whitney's death was an accidental drowning, with atherosclerotic heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. For Cissy, however, medical terminology could never capture the magnitude of losing her daughter. She later spoke openly about her grief in interviews and in her memoir, remembering Whitney reflecting on their complicated but deeply loving relationship and the addiction problems that had troubled Whitney's later years. The heartbreak became even more profound 3 years later when Cissy's granddaughter Bobby Christina Brown died at age 22 after being found unresponsive in a bathtub months earlier. Cissy therefore lived through the deaths of both her famous daughter and her granddaughter within a remarkably short period. Despite those losses, Cissy continued to protect Whitney's musical legacy while remaining grounded in the gospel tradition that had shaped their family. She died on October 7, 2024, at age 91 after being in hospice care for Alzheimer's disease. Cissy Houston's story was never simply about being Whitney Houston's mother. She was an accomplished singer in her own right, but behind her remarkable career was a mother who lived more than 12 years after losing her daughter, carrying a grief no Grammy Award or standing ovation could ever erase. Eddie Levert. Eddie Levert spent more than 6 decades giving soul music one of its most recognizable voices. As the powerful lead singer of the O'Jays, he helped turn songs like Love Train Backstabbers and For the Love of Money into classics. But behind the success was a family story marked by extraordinary heartbreak. Within less than 2 years, Levert lost 2 sons, Gerald and Sean Levert, both accomplished R&B singers in their own right. Gerald Levert had built an impressive career with the group Levert before becoming a successful solo performer. He also recorded with his father, creating a musical relationship that allowed audiences to hear their family bond. On November 10, 2006, Gerald died unexpectedly at his Ohio home at only 40 years old. The coroner ruled his death accidental, caused by acute intoxication involving a combination of prescription and over-the-counter medications, with underlying medical conditions also noted. Then another devastating loss arrived. On March 30, 2008, Eddie's son, Sean Levert, died at age 39 after becoming ill while being held in the Cuyahoga County Jail. His death was later attributed to complications of sarcoidosis, with other health factors reported. Losing one child can transform a parent's life. Eddie Levert had to bury two sons before either reached 41, yet he continued performing. Music became one place where Gerald and Sean could remain present, particularly through recordings and memories shared with audiences who had followed the Levert family for decades. Eddie's story adds a painful dimension to his legendary career. Fans may see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member commanding the stage with the OJs, but behind that voice is a father who survived two devastating losses and somehow found the strength to keep singing. KRS-One. KRS-One became one of hip-hop's most respected voices through his commanding delivery, social commentary, and belief that rap could educate as powerfully as it entertained. As the driving force behind Boogie Down Productions, he helped shape hip-hop with classics such as South Bronx, My Philosophy, and Love's Gonna Getcha. Known to generations as the Teacher, KRS-One built an image around knowledge, consciousness, and strength. But behind that public identity came an intensely personal tragedy when his son, Randy Hubbard Parker, died in 2007. Randy, the son of KRS-One and Simone G. Parker, was only 23 years old. In July 2007, his family announced that he had died in Atlanta. His mother said Randy had struggled with severe depression and confirmed that his death was suicide. Rather than allowing rumors to define what happened, the family openly addressed his mental health struggles and sought to use the tragedy to increase awareness about depression. For KRS-One, losing his son brought a painful reality into a career built around communicating difficult truths. He continued recording, performing, lecturing, and preserving hip-hop culture, but professional activity could never erase such a loss. Responsible storytelling should not invent private conversations or pretend to know precisely what happened during Randy's final hours. The confirmed facts are already heartbreaking enough. KRS-One has spent decades telling audiences that knowledge can change lives. Randy's death gave that message another deeply personal dimension. Fame, intelligence, and achievement cannot always reveal the suffering happening inside someone we love. Behind the legendary MC stands a father who lost his 23-year-old son, a tragedy that reminds families everywhere why emotional pain must be taken seriously before silence becomes permanent. Marvin Jones Jr. Marvin Jones Jr. built a successful NFL career through discipline, consistency, and an ability to deliver when his teams needed him most. After entering the league with the Cincinnati Bengals, he became particularly well known during his years with the Detroit Lions and later played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But while football measured Jones through receptions, touchdowns, and yards, the most difficult moment of his life occurred far away from the field. In December 2019, Jones and his wife Jasmine lost their youngest son Marlo. Marlo was only 6 months old when he died on December 27, 2019. Jones announced the devastating news, publicly writing an emotional tribute to his baby boy. He remembered Marlo's smile and described the joy the infant had brought into their home during his brief life. The family did not initially provide a detailed public explanation of the circumstances surrounding Marlo's death, and those private gaps should not be filled with speculation simply to create a more dramatic story. Jones was with the Detroit Lions when tragedy struck, and support quickly came from teammates, the organization, fans, and members of the wider NFL community. Eventually, football continued. Jones returned to competition and later continued his professional journey with Jacksonville before eventually returning to Detroit. But returning to work should never be confused with leaving grief behind. Professional athletes are often praised for toughness, yet losing a child demands a completely different kind of endurance. There is no training program for it and no victory capable of reversing it. Marlowe lived for only 6 months, but Jones's tribute demonstrated that the length of a life never determines the depth of a parent's love. Behind the NFL uniform is a father carrying the memory of a little boy whose brief presence permanently changed his family. Styles P built his reputation through uncompromising honesty. As a member of the Loax alongside Jadakiss and Sheek Louch, the Yonkers rapper became known for street narratives, introspective lyrics, and an emotional directness that separated him from many of his contemporaries. Yet some of his most painful words were not written for an album. They came from the experience of losing Tai Hing, the daughter he helped raise in 2015. Tai was the biological daughter of Styles P's wife, Adjua Styles, from a previous relationship, but Styles had been part of her life since she was very young and regarded her as his daughter. That distinction matters because some inaccurate online accounts have described Styles as losing a son named Noah. The documented family tragedy involved Tai, and Styles has spoken openly about the profound effect her death had on him. Tai died by suicide in 2015 at age 20. Years later, Styles and Adjua discussed their experience publicly, including through their podcast, The Last Kiss. Rather than sensationalizing what happened, they explored grief, family relationships, mental health, and the painful questions parents can carry after losing a child. Styles has acknowledged that grief does not disappear simply because years pass. His public reflections revealed a vulnerability far removed from the hardened image associated with much of his music. He continued recording, performing, building businesses, and raising his family, but Tai remained part of his life and memory. That is why Styles P belongs in this story when the relationship is described accurately. Biology alone does not define parenthood. He helped raise Tai, loved her as his daughter, and experienced her death as a father. Behind decades of hard-edged hip-hop stands, a man carrying a deeply personal loss, one that transformed conversations about strength into something much more complicated, vulnerable, and human. Master P built an empire from circumstances that offered few guarantees of success. Born Percy Miller and raised in New Orleans, he transformed independent music hustle into No Limit Records, creating one of hip-hop's most remarkable business stories. He became a rapper, producer, entrepreneur, actor, and father of a large family. Yet in May 2022, none of those accomplishments could protect him from devastating news: his daughter Tatiana Miller had died. Tatiana, who had appeared alongside members of her family on Growing Up Hip Hop, was 29 years old. Master P announced her death publicly on May 29th, asking fans to respect the family's privacy while emphasizing the importance of discussing mental health and substance abuse. He described the family's grief and encouraged people struggling with similar problems to seek support rather than suffer silently. Later, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner determined that Tatiana died from fentanyl intoxication and classified the death as accidental. Master P subsequently spoke more openly about the tragedy, acknowledging his daughter's struggles with substance abuse and describing the helplessness a parent can experience while trying to save an adult child battling addiction. Instead of allowing Tatiana's death to exist only as a private family tragedy, Miller sought to turn his grief toward awareness. He has discussed helping families understand addiction and encouraging stronger conversations around mental health and recovery. Nothing about that advocacy suggests the pain disappeared. Rather, it gave the loss a purpose beyond headlines. Master P spent decades teaching his children about independence, ownership, and building something lasting. But Tatiana's death confronted him with something business success could not solve. Behind the No Limit empire is a grieving father who lost his 29-year-old daughter. His experience is a painful reminder that addiction can reach families regardless of wealth or status, and sometimes even a parent's greatest efforts cannot produce the ending they desperately hoped for. Behind every famous name on this list was a parent who experienced a loss no award, fortune championship, or standing ovation could ever repair. Regina King lost her only son. Mike Tyson said goodbye to his 4-year-old daughter. Bobby Brown endured the unimaginable loss of 2 children, while Eddie Levert buried 2 sons before either reached 41. Their stories remind us that beyond the spotlight, these legends faced the same devastating grief that can touch any family. But which story affected you the most, and which Black celebrity who tragically lost a child do you believe should have been included? Share your thoughts and memories in the comments below. Subscribe to Golden Black Legends for more powerful stories honoring the lives, struggles, and legacies behind the stars we remember.